watching the monkey.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to another episode of The Art of Being with the Act Matrix. I'll let Phil go first.
Oh, hi, everybody. I am Phil Tenalia. I am one of your co-hosts today.
I'm the other one.
Right.
Kevin.
Yep.
Kevin Polk. And we have a special guest, a return visit by Ron Pizzo. And I'll let him tell us what he's going to present today, or what he's going to talk to us. We'll talk back at him too. But
right.
It's always fun.
Okay. So what I'm going to talk to you about is what I call counterintuitive dispute resolution, lessons from Tai Chi. And it's really all about the power of noticing, which is what the Matrix is all about.
Ooh, the power of noticing. Yeah, I heard. I did a training, which, by the way, is why I wasn't on the call the other day. And they said, you know what this results in? A lot of people saying the word noticing.
Right.
I've heard that. So yours is the power of noticing. Huh?
Right.
Tell us more.
Okay. Well, everyone thinks of Tai Chi or knows Tai Chi by the slow form. And that's when you say Tai Chi, everyone thinks it's slow moving, right?
I just did a representation of it.
Of slow moving, yes. Very good.
Oh, Phil's going even slower.
Even better, right. So that's only really the beginning of Tai Chi.
Oh, for those on the podcast, we're hucking it up with
we're moving
all movements with
like
our hands.
Doing Tai Chi.
And I appreciate that.
Yes. We're trying to set the context for you, Ron.
Well, thank you very much. You're doing great. But so, I mean, that's only half the story. Like, Tai Chi isn't just form. It was intended as a martial art.
Yes.
I've heard that.
Right. And so as a martial art, they have their practice, which is called push hands.
Oh, push hands. Push hands.
Push hands. That's the
Why don't
name.
you describe that for us there, Ron? Because I know what you're talking about, but
sure. So
what does that look like when you're pushing hands?
When you're pushing hands, you're standing toe-to-toe with a person in front of you, and you have your hands on each other's bodies. Usually my hands would be on the other person's arms and elbows, and their hands would be on my arms and elbows. And how
do you put your hand on the arm and an elbow at the same time? You mean
I'm saying my hands on their arm, on their elbow, their hands on my elbow, right?
Okay, gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So you reach out and grab somebody's elbow.
Right. So you're not going to grab, because grab is bad. You'll lose if you grab.
I said it on purpose.
I know. So the idea here is to push the other person over. Actually make a move.
Via their elbow.
Or you can move anywhere you want. You can put your hands on their bodies and just
on their shoulder.
Push your hard shoulder.
Okay, now, hold on, folks. That would require I take my hands off their elbow.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then place my hands somewhere else on their body.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes. So we're just talking about the starting position, right? But
the starting position's the elbows, and then anything goes after that.
Anything goes after that.
Exactly.
Right?
Okay.
And so what the Tai Chi masters, of course, I'm not one. Let's be clear, not a Tai Chi master. But what the masters that my teachers will tell you is that it's about skill. It's not about the strongest person winning. So you have to figure out how to use your skill to overcome someone who's stronger than you or bigger. And they also have another saying when you're doing push hands, no dill, no ding, right? So it means no.
What? No dill? D-I-L-L?
Well, that's how I say it. It's Chinese. No dill, no ding.
Okay.
Oh, okay, we'll go with that. Okay.
So dill is when people clash and they push against each other. So when you get pushed, you feel like pushing back. Right?
Urge to respond.
Right. That's the flight fright. So you get pushed, flight fright, you fight.
Right.
Yep.
That's bad because then it's just a shoving match, right?
Yeah.
So no deal means no space. So people think then the other thing to do, if I'm not going to push against a force, I'm going to move back from the force, right? That's bad too, because then you let the other person's force get stronger.
Take over.
And take you out, right?
So you either push back, the urge is to push back.
That's our natural way, flight, fright.
Or
fall
pull
back.
away. Or to pull away.
Right.
Or pull away. We either push back or we pull away. We either engage or avoid. And neither of those things are right. Neither of those things are workable.
Workable. I knew he was going to say that.
Right.
It's not whether it's workable or not.
So what are you supposed to do? And this is what people say. Like, what are we supposed to do?
Oh, I know. Go sideways.
That's hard because your feet can't move your feet.
Rats. Okay, well, it was just an amateur try, you know.
So,
okay, hold on a minute. You just introduced another rule to this game. You can't move your feet.
no, you cannot move your feet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a major rule.
Oh, yeah.
I was about ready to, jump up and down and do all kinds of cool stuff. No.
Well, you lose. If you move your feet, you lose.
Well, yeah, I didn't know that. Okay.
You know.
So now, I really am an amateur at this. I don't even know what you guys are talking about. So we got two people standing toe to toe, and they can't move their feet, and they start off holding each other's elbows.
Resting their hands on each other's elbows.
Hands on each other's elbows, and then they can move their hands where they want to in order to try to throw the other person off balance.
To make the other person move their feet.
Yeah. Even better.
Yeah.
So the definition is we have a video camera on their feet, and we can see when those feet moves and the alarm bell goes off.
You can see when they rock back, rock
and
forward.
the point goes to the other person. Gotcha.
What you can do in terms of going forward and backward, it's as much as your ankles will let you go forward. I mean, you can still push forward and push back.
Really in and really
from leaning out, leaning in, right? So, right. So the deal is, so when you do this and you do it well, the idea is never to clash, and the idea is never to pull away. It's always to follow and to listen. And it's interesting because when you get really good at it, what you're trying to do is really, it's more, the more better description of it is listening hands. Because you're listening for the other person's intention. So you're trying to figure out what they're going to do before they do it, so you can neutralize the force and get a position. So it requires a lot of listening. And to do no deal, no ding, it means you have an intention either to push or clash, or you have an intention to pull away. The minute you have intention is the minute you lose. It's kind of wow, right?
Yeah.
So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to understand the other person's intention. And there's only one way to do that. That's if you're calm, if you're still, and if you're listening and you're sensing.
You're receptive.
And receptive. And it's pretty cool when you get to the state, because you can tell when someone's moving and they don't even know they're moving. These little micro movements. So when someone moves forward, what often happens is they go off balance. They're moving off balance to push. And if you can sense when they're moving, then you can take your hands and, for example, one thing you could do is push on the side while they're moving forward. You can figure these things out, but there's only one way to figure out what to do, and that's by listening. And it's interesting when you get to people who think they know what they're doing, and you're telling them you're just going to sit here and listen.
So you can close your eyes on this exercise.
You could.
Yeah. I've done it with my eyes closed. Yes.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. But most people can't just sit there and listen.
Oh, yeah.
They always say, what am I doing?
Well, that's what they're listening to, right?
Right?
I mean, if they say out loud, what am I doing?
Yeah, they can't figure out what it
I'm
is.
just going to
supposed
guess
be
that's
doing.
not workable for this.
That's not workable either. They just sit there. They have no idea why they're sitting there, right?
I'm getting the gist of this. Yeah, that's not
Right.
going to work. No.
So you're sitting there to listen and to understand where the other person is coming from, so that then you can do the proper neutralizing move. And it's not by clashing, and it's not by retreating. It's by redirecting their force.
So you're okay. Whoa. So the listening, just to clarify for our listeners, has nothing to do with words.
No, not in Tai Chi.
Oh, so
But
yeah,
then
exactly. No, that's what I mean. And we're putting this push hands, whatever you call. Is it called push hands?
It's called push hands.
Push hands. So it's about listening for like muscle movements or
Or their intention.
the rustling of clothing.
Or where their eyes are looking, if they shift their vision. Or
I can hear somebody's eyes moving.
You can see it.
Ah, hold on a minute. Now that's seeing. Now I got to have my eyes open again. Okay.
Well, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I mean, that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing about this being centered. All this information, you'd be surprised at how much information comes into our bodies and we don't know what's coming in.
Actually, I wouldn't be surprised at it at all. I just
Right?
don't know how to do push hands yet.
No.
Okay, but
right. So, I mean,
but I get it. Okay, when you say listening, you're talking big listening with a capital L.
Right.
Listening with all your senses,
Listening
all your
with
being.
5 senses.
listening with all your senses, with everything, right? And
Gotcha.
and it's pretty amazing how you can do it. You can even listen with your eyes closed, because you start to notice things that your other senses will start noticing things about the other person's intention. You're listening for their intention.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And you're being in the moment.
And so what?
Moment, because if you start to think, oh, I notice a weakness here, I'm going to exploit that. If you have that conscious thought, then you're not noticing anymore.
I'm the guy who talks about 250 milliseconds, right? That's plenty of time to lose this little battle. Because have a conscious thought like that takes way more than a quarter second. And what you're talking about are responses that are less than a quarter of a second.
Oh yeah, even breath makes a difference. If someone starts to inhale, you know they're planning something, right?
Exactly.
If they inhale, push, right?
And so the basic idea of this is that I can suddenly have this inner knowledge, unspoken, just an inner knowledge of what they're going to do.
Right.
And then I can position myself to take advantage of that move and throw them off balance. Because when they execute the move, I'm already ready and waiting.
Yeah.
Right. I've already read it, and then I'm already going to do whatever I do.
I'm not consciously thinking about what I'm going to do.
No. I'm not that, but it's the basic, it's predict and then do whatever you do with your hands.
Whatever you need to do.
Respond, whatever you need to do to throw them off balance. And that all occurs in way less than 1/4 of a second.
It's instantaneous.
Right.
When someone thinks
it seems instantaneous. Believe me, if I put an EEG machine on the person's brain and put a super slow motion camera on all of it, and you set all of this off, we can watch it unfold millisecond by millisecond. And then it's not instantaneous. It's just that, things that are only 5 or 10 or 25 milliseconds long seem like they're instantaneous to the human. But to the stop clock, they're not. They're not instantaneous. And remember, in the Olympics, even, it goes down to 1/100ths of seconds now.
Right.
So they're getting close to that 1/1000th of second thing that we're now talking about now. Because when I say milliseconds, I'm talking about 1/1000th of a second. So all of it seems instantaneous indeed. Even, by the way, even a quarter second seems instantaneous. Right. What you're getting at is if you practice this enough, you'll realize it's not. It's not instantaneous.
No, it's kind of funny when I work with people and I do push hands and I'm trying to help them understand. I'll say things like, "You've moved." said, no, I haven't. I said, yes, you have.
Yeah, you've already moved. Well, remember when let's go back to flow for a second, Phil. When the basketball players or any sports, taking any sports, when they say, you know, when I'm suddenly know that I'm in the flow, it's as if everything is happening in slow motion.
Yes.
No,
Right.
the players on the court and stuff are now moving in a slow motion.
The time thing goes poof.
It goes poof, and I'm seeing things in a whole new
Right.
thing. That's what you're going for with this.
Exactly.
Is that slow motion. And in that slow motion, right, I can react and say, oh, well, you've already reacted. And the person says, no, I didn't. I'm like, oh, yeah, you did.
That's right.
Right. Because I had to time things slowed down. So cool. How many? So what? It takes 4, 5, 6 repetitions of this, and you got it. Wink, wink, wink.
No, not this one. This one. The problem with this one is that it because you're directly under attack.
Yeah.
Automatically. I mean, you're really fighting your fight flight.
Your amygdala is kicking
automatic.
Yeah,
right?
but that can be overcome.
Yeah, it takes some time to train it away.
No lie. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of time.
Mm.
It goes into when they talk about police and military training. And when you go into a situation where somebody has a knife pulled or a gun out and ready to go, your amygdala is going to go off like crazy.
Yeah.
And it takes hundreds and hundreds of hours of training to get to where you don't do the amygdala response. You do some other response. And then the other problem is, even if you go a week or two away from the training, you immediately go reverting back to the fight or flight response.
Well, that's true, but it's easy. Once you hit this certain level, or it's easy to get back to, right? It's easier to get back to than starting from scratch.
You can return to it.
Well, it's easier to return to it, but if you stop training, you lose your edge. That's what I'm saying.
So exactly, but the difference with Tai Chi is that, you know, you start to realize that it's never a life and death situation, really. I mean, someone's just pushing on you, sort of.
Oh no, but when military situations, police, it can literally be life and death. But in Tai Chi, still you're overcoming that.
Yes.
Then amygdala response. You're changing. You're not overcoming it. You're changing it.
Right. So, but you know, as with everything, like all the Eastern thought, it's a unifying theory. Like this idea is not just for Tai Chi. Yeah. These ideas.
So now here comes dispute resolution.
Right. It also, it's part of their Chinese medicine. It's part of their philosophy. And then it also becomes like the way that people interact, there's a story, for instance, our teacher, he's from Taiwan. He's been doing this for years and years and years and years. Started as a little child, and he trained with the monks. And there's a story about the monks. 2 monks were walking, a monk and a student were walking, and they see there's a duck in the water. And, the monk says to the student, what do you see? I see the duck. Then they walk a few minutes later, and the monk says, well, what do you see? Well, the duck's not there. And he goes, well, the duck must have flown off. And the monk hits the student in the back of the head, because the student doesn't know, didn't see it, didn't observe it, wasn't paying attention, wasn't noticing. Mm-hmm. So how can you say that? All you can really say is that the duck's not there.
Not there. The student did an assumption.
An assumption. And when you're doing so, I mean, that just shows you how part of being present and aware and noticing is also part of all the philosophies. And in terms of dispute resolution, it really works in dispute resolution world, because when you are, and I do this a lot because of my job, I have people who want to have fights with me, right? Mm-hmm. And so whether it's a verbal attack or a physical attack, it always triggers the fight-flight reaction.
Yes.
And it causes the amygdala to go off. And right, you either walk away, back up, and they think they've got the upper hand, or you go in there, and then sometimes you can get so angry because of all this amygdala rush that you're noticing becomes like tunnel vision, and you start arguing over things that don't matter.
Yep.
So what I do in Tai Chi in terms of how I have to be to do push hands well is the same stance I take when I am negotiating or arguing with somebody. It's I'm always in the middle, and I'm always noticing, and I'm being present to the situation, and I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to do. I'm there to observe, and I'm not there to react. So there was one time I remember, it was a very difficult situation, and I had got involved in it, and so my client said, I've been dealing with this other party for years, and they're just horrible. They just jump on everything we say. And I had to deliver some bad news, right? I said, well, we're going to do it my way. And I said, you don't talk, I'll talk. So I get in there, I deliver the bad news, and then I stop. And the other person stops. And of course, trying to elicit a response from me. Elicit a response that would throw me off balance. It would be something like, well, you were wrong, something like that. But I didn't. We stared at each other for 15 minutes. Everyone in the room, it was very uncomfortable. The room was just, it was in the summer. Everybody was sweating, and I just kept looking at this person. And I said, do you have any questions? They said, no. I said, thank you very much. And they sat there. And I looked at them again and said, do you have any questions? They said, no. Then why are you still here? I said, thank you, and left. Because it's like it's like I was centered, I was ready, and they didn't have anywhere to push.
Aha.
Yeah.
So that's where it translates into real life.
Right. And so a lot of people, when they go into a negotiation or any dispute, they always have in their head what it is that they're going to say, what they want to say, what they believe their position to be, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so when you have those thoughts in your mind, you're never really present. And so the fighting, the arguing turns into this pushing, where everyone is pushing against each other. And that is not what you want to do. But see, people are afraid to take the noticing position because they say, well, what if I forget what it is that I want to say? What if I don't say what I want to say? What do you mean I go in there and not really think about what I want to say, right? And I said, that's why you do your preparation. So it's there. It's like automatic. It comes up. At the right moment, you will always say the right thing, which is kind of weird. It's counterintuitive. You're not thinking about it.
Counterintuitive, right.
You're just dealing with it.
You're responding in the moment.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's coming your way at that point.
Right. And that puts you in control by being in the center and by noticing and by listening, which seem to be passive things. That's really where your power lies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're going against people's assumptions that they've been taught, or we've been taught, that if you're quiet and observing, you're being passive.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
If you're listening, you're being passive. So they think, fight, flight, that means, but the thing is, it's also how you hold your body. So if someone starts arguing at you and you start backing up physically, like what you would do in Tai Chi physically, you would also have to do here.
Yeah.
So if someone starts arguing to you and they're kind of pressing in,
right,
you don't move. You stand your ground. You notice. Right?
Yeah.
Just take your position.
So you're doing your Tai Chi active listening in the dispute resolution situation.
Dispute resolution. And then when they speak and they say whatever they have to say, what people don't realize is that they're giving up their position. They're telling you what it is that matters to them, or they are you can take someone down a road that they never wanted to go to. just because you could listen and take them to the logical conclusion of their arguments,
That's
rather than worrying about counteracting them.
right. Go with what they said, which is in touch hands.
Push hands. Yeah.
Sorry, push hands. You're drawing them in to fall over,
Right.
throwing them off balance.
And what people don't realize, and this is what I tell everyone, if you are in control, then you control whether you say yes to something or no to something. Agreement is yes, right? So just because you're being centered and listening and following, that doesn't mean you've agreed to anything.
No.
No?
Right.
I had people argue with me for an hour, and I haven't agreed to anything. And I just listened.
Cool.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So from the matrix point of view, the noticing is part of it. The training for yourself is when you think about these situations you go into, when you think about the arguments, you kind of have to notice what shows up inside yourself.
Yeah.
There you go.
Understand your own responses, right?
Yeah.
You have to understand what responses you've had in the past and whether they workable.
Whether they're workable. Right. Yeah.
Right. And then you also have to then stay in choice and understand that where you want to be is choosing things that move, that you have to understand where your values are and what's important so you know where to move.
Yep. So you got to know your own stuff.
You got to know your own stuff before you go in.
You got in that kind of situation, know your own buttons.
Know your own buttons. But the other thing is, once you have the matrix, and everyone has a matrix.
Oh yeah, everybody in the room.
Right? So you can start to see which of their own buttons they're pushing.
Yep.
You can start to notice, oh, they are saying this, they are doing that, they are, so you can see.
Way cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is way cool. Now this is going to take a little practice, folks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Probably it might be handy to go find somebody that knows Tai Chi a bit. And I don't mean you have to become a martial arts expert, but just to do it a little bit and see what they're talking about. And then this idea of going into conflict situations and listening carefully and responding to what is said in the moment, instead of the recording that you have in your head.
So in Tai Chi, though, remember, we always have an idea. We know what winning is. Like we know, move the person off their feet, right?
Yep.
So when you go into your argument, you have to know what winning is. You have to know what the acceptable outcome is.
Your acceptable outcome is.
Right. And then you also have to be prepared, not so much as into a position, but the things that truly matter and whether you're getting to. This is the difference between, whether I should settle for $50 or $100, as opposed to what is really truly important about this dispute and what matters to me.
Yeah. Well, that's why you can negotiate more of a compromise solution.
Right.
Yeah.
You can give a little, take a little kind of stuff, right? Wow. But so conflict resolution as an Eastern martial art.
And the matrix.
And the matrix. Well, and the matrix. The matrix. Okay, folks, by the way, we talk about this, and somebody may have just stumbled onto this podcast not knowing what they're getting into. And we've been saying the matrix, and we never explained it. It's super easy. Phil's going to show it. It's 2 lines. I mean, just like, across lines, like graph paper or something.
Yeah.
Lower right-hand part of it, we talk about who and what's important to us, and we write it down. And the lower left-hand part of it, we talk about what kind of yucky stuff shows up inside of us that we don't like and we tend to want to get rid of. Upper left is what we do to get rid of it, try to lessen it. Upper right quadrant is what do we do to move toward who and what's important to us. Well, if you think about that just a little bit, you go, well, that's pretty well all of life, isn't it? And you go, yeah.
Yep.
And so when Ron says you need to know yourself, you need to know your stuff, before you go into this. It means know who's important to you, know what's important to you, know what you're trying to get out of this.
Yeah.
Know your stuff. The other side is the area of what's oftentimes called buttons. Your buttons. And if you know your buttons, well, then other people have a whole lot more trouble pushing your buttons.
Yep.
Because
you're aware of your buttons.
You're aware of them. But this is not something that you get in 4 minutes or 5. You need to study this a while and do this a while, and then know your responses to the buttons. So yeah, when somebody pushes my button, I tend to do X. That's what I do. Okay, well, now that you know that, in the future you might not respond with X. You might respond with something else, like Ron's talking about with the Tai Chi stuff. Yeah. So that's, and it's really time well spent to know what motivates you. And when I say that, I'm motivated to move toward who and what's important to me. Yep. And I'm also really motivated to get away from yucky stuff. So you need to know both those sides of that motivational matrix, and that's why it's called a matrix. When you go into things like this, other than that, you're a sitting duck for the other person,
right?
Who may know this stuff well and may quickly figure out your buttons, may figure out who and what's really important to you, and attack them. It's the famous, your mother wears army boots kind of attack kind of thing, where you'll then respond with anger, and now you're off down that road, and they got you off balance, right?
Yeah. You start talking about your mother and her army boots rather than
well, and then you get pissed off, and now they got you where they wanted you, because they wanted you to get pissed off, and so now, I'm really sensitive about my mother and all that. But if you know that, you go, oh, okay, well, there's that button. Yep, I noticed that, and now you're back to, okay, listen, because you don't have to respond to that.
No.
So it's like, okay.
You don't have to accept that invitation.
No, you can just sit there and continue to watch them.
Don't, right? So that everyone tries to take you to your buttons. So in that diagram, where you want to be when you resolve disputes is in the circle, in the
middle, in the noticing middle, right?
Yep.
Taking in the information and then responding when it's to your advantage, and especially to knock the person a little off balance.
Yeah.
To get toward the resolution that you would like to have.
Right.
Now, I would say I've been in enough, Ron and others, maybe you don't know because you haven't been on this podcast, I have a history in dispute resolution that dates back to 1984. So I too have been around these neighborhoods of dispute resolution. And these need to be gone in with a willingness to do a bit of compromising.
Yep.
That it's not winner take all. We're going to try and find a workable thing for all parties involved. And if you go in with that kind of an attitude, you're much better off. So, but that does not mean you have to give away the store either.
No. You never give away the store.
No, you don't do that. But you nevertheless, you're open, because that's where you might push somebody else's button. You find out, oh, that's really important to them. It ain't that big important to me. Well, I can give it to them. Oh, well, right. You can have that. And they go, really? I can have that? And you go, well, yeah, I'll go, I take it. And then that's all you want? Yeah, that's it. Oh, we're good then.
No.
Well, because by listening very carefully, I learned what was important to them. Yeah. And I already knew what was important to me. And so it puts you in a lot better position.
Right. So here's the evil part, right?
Oh, no, the maniacal evil part.
Oh, the evil part. So when you're there noticing, you notice their buttons, yep. And let's say your game plan is to get rid of the person you're negotiating with and talk someone else.
Yeah.
Then you know what buttons to push. And you just keep
there you go. There you go.
Pushing. Can work for and against.
Now Ron's not only is he a dispute resolution guy, he's also an attorney,
Yes.
Yeah.
lawyer. I'm
That's what
not.
you do.
So I'm going to.
Right, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
This is
and
Ron.
by the way, if I had a really hairy dispute, I'd just get
Yeah.
him in on
Go
it.
get Ron.
Yeah.
I'll just go get Ron.
I feel bad when
Yeah.
I do that, but I have done that. I will admit it.
Well, yeah, because that's your job. It's
Being a
okay.
lawyer.
That's what you're. That's the stance. That's
Workable for you.
it. Right.
Yeah. And just poking the bear all the time. But
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
get them really angry. Ooh.
Oh well, this has been great. I did, as I said, but I told you guys before we started the recording. I have someplace to go, but we've done well.
Yeah.
You've done well. The extraordinary level of noticing that occurs within the push hands exercise of Tai Chi entirely translates over into a dispute resolution setting where you need to do extraordinary noticing. But that also includes knowing your inner self,
Yes,
as well as noticing what other folks are up to.
very much so.
Oh, cool.
Cool.
This has been great.
Nice. Yeah.
And we'll be back with more. We have other podcasts with guests coming up.
Yes. More guests to follow.
We like our guests because Phil and I get, we can pontificate about
Right.
all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
It's much better to get guests on, listen to what they have to say. So we'll be back.
Yep.
And,
Okay.
you guys have a great rest of the day.
Hey, you too.
Okay. Bye bye now.
See you later.
Take care. Bye bye.